considered to be greatest. Jesus said to them,
The King of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who exercise authority over them call themselves benefactors. But you are not to be like that. Instead, the greatest among you should be like the youngest, and the one who rules like the one who serves. For who is greater, the one who is at the table or the one who serves? Is it not the one who is at the table? But I am among you as one who serves. You are those who have stood by me in my trials, and I confer on you a kingdom, just as my Father conferred one on me, so that you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom. Sit here while I go over there and pray. My soul is overwhelmed to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. Pray that you will not fall into temptation.
Then Jesus told the disciples,
This very night you will all fall away on account of me. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you into Galilee.
Even if all fall away on account of you, I never will.
I tell you the truth, this very night, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times.
Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you.
and all the disciples said the same. Going a little farther, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed.
My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will.
Then he returned to the disciples and found them sleeping.
Could you men not keep watch with me for 1 hour? Watch and pray, so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the body is weak.
He went away a second time and prayed.
My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done.
When he came back, he again found them sleeping, because their eyes were heavy. So he left them and went away once more and prayed the 3rd time, saying the same thing. Then he returned to his disciples and said to them,
Are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour is near, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer.
While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. With him was a large crowd armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests and the elders of the people. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them.
The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him. Greetings, Rabbi.
Friend, do what you came for.
Going at once to Jesus, Judas kissed him. Then the men stepped forward, seized Jesus, and arrested him. With that, one of Jesus' companions reached for his sword, drew it out, and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear.
Put your sword back in its place, for all who draw the sword will die by the sword. Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would the scriptures be fulfilled that say it must happen in this way? Am I leading a rebellion that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I sat in the temple courts teaching, and you did not arrest me. But this is your hour when darkness reigns.
Then all the disciples deserted him and fled.
but Peter followed him at a distance, right up to the courtyard of the high priest. He entered and sat down with the guards to see the outcome. The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for false evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death, but they did not find any, though many false witnesses came forward. Finally, 2 came forward and declared,
This fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days.
Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus,
Are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you?
But Jesus remained silent.
I charge you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God.
Yes, it is as you say, but I say to all of you, in the future you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One, and coming on the clouds of heaven.
And then the high priest tore his clothes and said,
He has spoken blasphemy. Why do we need any more witnesses? Look, now you have heard of blasphemy. What do you think?
And the crowd answered,
He is worthy of death.
Then they spit in his face and struck him with their fists. Others slapped him and said,
Prophesy to us, Christ. Who hit you? If you are the Christ, tell us.
Now Peter was sitting in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him.
You also were with Jesus of Galilee.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Then he went out to the gateway, where another girl saw him, and said to the people there.
This fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth.
He denied it again with an oath.
I don't know the man.
Surely you're one of them, for your accent gives you away.
I don't know the man.
Immediately a rooster crowed. Then Peter remembered the word that Jesus had spoken. Before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. And he went outside and wept bitterly.
Early in the morning, all the chief priests and the elders of the people came to the decision to put Jesus to death. They bound him, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate, the governor. When Judas, who had betrayed him, saw that Jesus was condemned, he was seized with remorse and returned the silver coins to the chief priests and the elders.
I have sinned, for I have betrayed innocent blood.
What does this add to us? That's your responsibility.
So Judas threw the money into the temple and left. Then he went away and hanged himself.
The chief priest picked up the coin and said, It is against the law to put this into the treasury, since it is blood money. So they decided to use the money to buy the potter's field as a burial place for foreigners. That is why it has been called the field of blood to this day. Then what was spoken by Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled. They took the 30 silver coins, the price set on him by the people of Israel, and they used them to buy the potter's field, as the Lord had commanded.
Meanwhile, Jesus stood before the governor, Pilate, and the governor asked him,
Are you the king of the Jews?
My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jews. But now my kingdom is from another place.
You are a king then.
You are right in saying I am a king. In fact, for this reason I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me.
What is truth?
Then Pilate asked him,
Don't you hear the testimony they are bringing against you?
but Jesus made no reply, not even to a single charge, to the great amazement of the governor.
While Pilate was sitting on the judge's seat, his wife sent him a message.
Don't have anything to do with that innocent man, for I have suffered killed today in a dream because of him.
On hearing this, Pilate asked if the man was a Galilean. When he learned that Jesus was from Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem at that time. When Herod saw Jesus, he was greatly pleased because for a long time he had been wanting to see him. From what he had heard about him, he had hoped to see him perform some miracle. He plied him with many questions, but Jesus gave him no answer. The chief priests and the teachers of the law were standing there, vehemently accusing him. Then Herod and his soldiers ridiculed and mocked him. Dressing him in an elegant robe, they sent him back to Pilate. That day, Herod and Pilate became friends. Before this, they had been enemies. Pilate called together the chief priests, the rulers, and the people, and said to them,
You brought me this man as one who is inciting the people for rebellion. I have examined him in your presence and have found no basis for your charges against him. Neither has Herod, for he has sent him back to us. As you can see, he has done nothing to deserve death. Therefore, I will punish him and then release him.
But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas, a notorious prisoner who had taken part in the rebellion, and to have Jesus executed.
Which of the two do you want me to release to you?
Barabbas!
Give us
Barabbas! Barabbas!
What shall I do then with Jesus, who is called Christ?
Crucify him!
Why? What crime has he committed?
Crucify him!
When Pilate saw that he was getting nowhere, but that instead an uproar was starting, he took water and washed his hands in front of the crowd.
I am innocent of this man's blood. It is your responsibility.
Let his blood be on us and on our children. Crucify him!
Then he released Barabbas to them. But he had Jesus flogged and handed him over to be crucified. Then the governor's soldiers took Jesus to the praetorium and gathered the whole company of soldiers around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and then twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on his head. They put a staff in his right hand and knelt in front of him and mocked.
Hail, King of the Jews! They spit on him and took the staff and struck him on the head again and again. After they had mocked him, they took off the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. As they were going out, they met a man from Cyrene named Simon, and they forced him to carry the cross. A large number of people followed him, including the women who mourned and wailed for him.
Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children. For the time will come when you will say, Blessed are the barren women, the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed. Then they will say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, Cover us. For if men do these things when the tree is green, what will happen when it is dry?
They came to a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. Here they crucified him, and with him 2 others, one on each side, and Jesus in the middle.
Crucify my Lord.
Many of the Jews read this sign, for the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and the sign was written in Aramaic, Latin, and Greek. The chief priest of the Jews protested to Pilate.
Do not write the King of the Jews, but that this man claimed to be King of the Jews.
What I have written, I have written.
When the soldiers crucified Jesus, they took his clothes, dividing them into 4 shares, one for each of them, with the undergarment remaining. This undergarment was seamless, rolled in one piece from top to bottom.
Let's not tear. Let's decide by lot who will get it.
This happened that the scripture might be fulfilled, which said, "They divided my garments among them, and cast lots for my clothing." So this is what the soldiers did.
Near the cross stood Jesus stood his mother's sister, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother there, the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said to his mother,
Dear woman, here is your son.
and to the disciple,
Here is your mother.
from that time on, John took her into his home. Later, knowing that all was now completed, and that the scriptures would be fulfilled, Jesus said,
I am thirsty.
A jar of wine vinegar was there, so they soaked a sponge in it, put the sponge on the stalk of the hyssop plant, and lifted it to Jesus' lips. But after tasting it, he refused to drink it.
one of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him,
Aren't you the Christ? Save yourself and us.
but the other criminal rebuked him.
Don't you fear God? Since you are under the same sentence, we are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve. But this man has done nothing wrong. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom.
I tell you the truth. Today you will be with me in paradise.
It was now the 6th hour. The darkness came over the land until the 9th hour, for the sun stopped shining. About the 9th hour, Jesus cried out,
My God, why have you forsaken me?
and then Jesus called out in a loud voice,
Father, into your hands I commit my spirit.
When he had said this, he breathed his last.
At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook and the rocks split. The centurion, seeing what had happened, praised God and said,
Surely he was the Son of God.
when all the people had gathered to witness this sight saw what took place, they beat their breasts and went away. But all those who knew him, including the women who had followed him from Galilee, stood at a distance watching these things. Now is the day for preparation. The next day was to be a special Sabbath. Because the Jews did not want the bodies left on the cross during the Sabbath, they asked Pilate to have the legs broken and the bodies taken down. Soldiers therefore came and broke the legs of the first man who had been crucified with Jesus, and then those of the other. But when they came to Jesus and found that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. Instead, one of the soldiers pierced Jesus' side with a spear, bringing a sudden flow of blood and water. These things happen so that the scripture will be fulfilled. Not one of his bones will be broken. And as another scripture says, they will look on the one they have pierced.
Now there was a man named Joseph, a member of the council, a good and upright man, who had not consented to their decision in action. He came from the Judean town of Arimathea, and when he was waiting for the kingdom of God. Going to Pilate, he asked for Jesus' body. Then he took it down, wrapped it in linen cloth, and placed it in a tomb cut in the rock, one in which no one could yet have been laid. The women who had come with Jesus from Galilee followed Joseph and saw the tomb and how his body was laid on it. Then they went home and prepared spices and perfumes. But they rested on the Sabbath in obedience to the